Today we're going to make a kitchen island with a slate top. This video is sponsored by Care Of, which is a personalized vitamin and supplement company. I'll tell you a little bit more about Care Of after the project. And if you stick around to the very end of the video, I'll test out this island by preparing one of my favorite meals on it. So I've been interested in doing more projects with reclaimed materials lately, and so I made some friends with some people that work at a custom countertop place. They typically have to spend money to have these stone scraps hauled away, so they gave me a whole bunch of them. Now they also had some slightly larger pieces that weren't big enough to use for a full countertop, but were too big to be thrown away. And these they sold me for anywhere between $60 and $90. For the base, I'm just going to use 2x4s. Now, I made sure to pick kiln-dried fir premium 2x4s. And I also went through the pile and selected just the ones with the nicest grain. I cut the 2x4s to length using my mini miter saw. I'll post some drawings of this project on my website. Now typically 2x4s come with rounded over edges, and I wanted this base to be nice and square. So I just trimmed about 1/8 of an inch off of either of the sides of the 2x4s using my table saw. This is just for aesthetic reasons and isn't totally necessary. I ripped a few lengths of 2x4 into strips that are just about 1 3/8 of an inch wide. I sanded all the pieces with my orbital sander and 150 grit sanding pads. I started the assembly by gluing 2 of the longer strips of 2x4 together and clamping them into place. Even though these 2x4s are premium and pretty straight, it's still important to make sure when you clamp them that everything's lined up the way it's supposed to be. I then secured the 2 pieces with 3-inch long finished screws. Now the locations of the screws are going to show in this design, so I want to make sure I measured their locations and placed them at even intervals. I recommend using a brush or a rag to evenly distribute the glue. That just keeps a large amount of excess from squeezing up, which saves you the trouble of chiseling it out later. I used my miter saw to cut the strips that I ripped down to length, and then assembled the bottom shelf of the island by assembling all these different L sections of wood that I made together. After gluing and screwing the frame together, I then added in all the slats. Now, at first I just used a little bit of glue to hold them down. I also placed a board on them with some weights to make sure the glue would really take hold. Once the glue had cured, I could flip the whole thing over and now add screws to further secure them that won't be seen. The upper support is a little bit easier to make and just involves pieces of 2x4. I marked a location for the screws on the legs because these are going to be the most visible fasteners, and I really want them to look nice and consistent. I also got the 3-inch finished screws started in the legs before trying to assemble the whole thing. I placed the top shelf upside down on the floor and then used a square to make sure my legs were perpendicular before screwing the legs to the frame. I flipped the frame with the legs over and then used some scrap pieces of 2x4 to raise up the bottom shelf and then screwed it into place. I cut a bunch of short pieces of a 1/4-inch diameter dowel and then drilled 1/4-inch holes about 3/8 of an inch deep. Now I had overdriven these screws so there was plenty of room. I then put a little bit of glue on the short pieces of dowel and hammered them into the holes. Once the glue had cured, I used my Japanese trim saw to cut them nice and flush. I also did a little bit of finish sanding with my orbital sander. I finished the base with 2 coats of Minwax polyacrylic in matte. Now I want to be able to easily move this island, but I also don't want the heavy stone top to slide around. So what I like to do in these situations is just use a little bit of silicone caulk. Now this won't glue it down, but it certainly will keep it from sliding. This 1 1/4-inch thick honed piece of green slate is about 20 inches wide and about 56 inches long. One of the corners was a little bit chipped, so I was able to get it for just $65. I used a razor blade to scrape away all the dirt and marks, and then used a sanding sponge to clean it all the way and also to round over some of the edges just a little bit. I used a cutting board conditioner made out of mineral oil to seal the top. I just kept layering this in and then letting it dry. I did about 4 to 5 coats. I added some hooks under the top frame that I could hang pots and pans from, but you could also add a second shelf right in the middle. This project has a nice, minimal, almost shaker style to it, and it's a great way to do simple woodworking that features a one-off piece of stone. I also like that I was able to purchase all of the materials for this project for less than $100. Now I'm closing in on 40 and have been feeling a little bit slower, so health and nutrition are a really important focus for me now. What I really like about Care Of is that in addition to providing me with the supplements that I want, it also provides a ton of information along with peer-reviewed studies that show the efficacy of the different supplements I am interested in. I really appreciate their sober and rational approach to nutrition. There's so much hype out there, and I'm not really looking to get super jacked or anything. I just want to take a few things that are going to make the quality of my life just a little bit better. About a week after filling out the survey, I got these nicely prepared daily packets that are really easy to remember to take. Their online questionnaire is really helpful in identifying the supplements that you're interested in. If you want to try Care Of, click on the link in the description box below and use the promo code HOMEMADEMODERN. Alright, but now let's test out this island with a little bit of meal prepping. Avocado toast with a poached egg is one of my go-to lunches, and I've recently discovered a really cool way to poach the eggs. I use my sous vide machine and I put the egg right into a coffee filter and then clip it to the side of the pan. This keeps the egg from running away or getting all feathery. I don't eat bread that often, but when I do, I enjoy some grass-fed butter on it before smashing the avocado right into it. And the only real seasonings that I use are just a little bit of freshly diced jalapeno and some cilantro. And now that the eggs are done, I just take the coffee filter, let a little bit of the water drip off of it, and then deliver it right to the toast. Oops, well that first one didn't go so well, and the steak plates that I thought might be okay for poached eggs, the moat isn't quite big enough to contain all the egg gravy. That's actually good. I want to see how the sealed slate would hold up against something like egg yolk. And much better. For more detailed instructions, check out our website, and if you want to see what we're working on next, be sure to follow us on Instagram. Check out some of our other videos, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Thanks!